I think I might have gotten it to work.
Oh, good. Well done.
Let's see here. Well, if I can get turned around and get right side up or upside right, we'll be cooking with grease.
Okay.
Good evening, Ladies and Lanes podcast. I'm host Rico Muhammad. I'm a little bit sideways right now, but hopefully
Oh, there you
I
are.
can get my I can get my equipment to cooperate with me. Side up or upside, however you want to say it. Tonight on the Racing Lanes podcast, we are coming live and in living color. I'm your host Rico Muhammad. My good compadre, time co-host Chuck Snow is right there below me. It has been an interesting week, and we got a major topic to discuss. One of the industry's persons in the industry when it comes to from a media standpoint, I guess you could say, and also he comes from a freight family, big trucking family as well. Speaking of none other
cut
than
out there, Craig Fuller is who Rico is talking about. Well, sound just went dead. Well, bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Rico he is working remotely tonight from a truck stop somewhere in North Carolina. And you can't always depend on Wi-Fi when you're remote, but we usually do it. So bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We do have some interesting news. There's Rico. Oh, much better.
I don't know. Sometimes my technology just don't want to cooperate with me. But anyway, I was getting ready to say, I don't know which part I cut off on, Chuck.
You were starting to talk about Craig Fuller. You never even got his name out. And let's hear what Craig had to say. He's pretty smart.
Craig shook up the industry with what he had to say. Before I jump into that, though, let's do a little bit of housekeeping before I move into that. If you guys would do us a huge favor, please like, share, and subscribe to the show. It helps us out tremendously, helps us get into a bigger algorithm, and helps pushes the show out to a broader audience. And we need all the help we can get trying to achieve that goal. So if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, would do that for us, we greatly appreciate it. Also, it doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us out tremendously. We won't spam you or none of that good stuff. It just helps us how the internet works, so to speak. And before we jump into what we were going to talk about with Mr. Craig Fuller, and man, I just keep getting turned upside down and side right up.
Don't worry about it. You can handle it. You being a good astronaut.
My iPad, because I'm not at home, my iPad, so it has that thing in there where it just it'll switch based on I guess the levels or whatever in it. I don't know, but anyway, I was going to give you guys a fuel report for this week. We're showing that the average price of diesel is coming in on a national average of $3.62 per gallon, and that's down almost 5 cents per gallon since last week. So fuel is trending in the right direction. Also, when it comes to the spot market rates, this is kind of been this ties into everything that has been going on as of late. But surprisingly, we're not seeing much of a bump in certain areas, at least for the totality. So right now we're showing that dry vans is averaging at $2.07 per mile on average nationally, and that is 1 cent per mile lower than the previous week. We're still showing that flatbed is remaining very strong, showing at $2.52 per mile, and that rate is unchanged from the previous week. And we are showing that reefer rates have crept up by 1 cent per mile, showing a national average of $2.48 per mile. So there seems to be a little bit of movement because we're starting to notice that there is some serious capacity that has left the marketplace. I was messaging back and forth with a good friend of the show that was on with us last week, Mr. Dean Croak from DAT. There's a major player out of Chicago that had almost 100 trucks on the road and to have just kind of vanished from they all of that capacity seems to have just dissipated overnight almost. So it's some strange times that we're living in, interesting times that we're living in. Of course, we're still dealing with there's still a lot of fallout from the non-domicile CDL drivers. There's still a lot of stuff that is going on with the latest unfortunate incident with the crash out in California with that gentleman and everything that took place on that level. So there's still a lot of stuff, a lot of trash that needs to be taken out, so to speak. And the industry needs to be cleaned up. And it looks like we may be well on our way to trying to clean it up. And this kind of dovetails directly into what we were alluding to a little bit earlier with the comments that Craig Fuller made earlier in the week. And Craig Fuller basically just came out and kind of called a spade a spade. He said there's no such thing as a driver shortage.
Never was.
And he lambasted and pointed and called out the ATA by name and said that they are responsible for they're pretty much responsible for irreversible damage that they have done to the industry by pulling that narrative for so long and allowing the whole driver, he kind of laid it directly at their doorstep. They are responsible for that narrative and pushing that theme out here. And now that's why the industry is in such shambles, because you're having a problem with overcapacity. It's a supply and demand industry. At one point in time, there was way too much supply and not enough demand. That was keeping rates suppressed. And now that we're starting to see some people have decided to kind of exit the stage with all of the different things that have been going on, but it's really starting to have somewhat of an effect. It may not have the sweeping effect that some of us thought it was going to have, but there is definitely changes and effect being felt out there in the industry. Chuck, anything you like to kind of elaborate on that?
Yes, and I don't think it's going to affect the dry box sector as quickly. It will eventually; it'll trickle down there, but certainly the reefer and the flatbed are feeling it more because there's more of a demand for those trucks. And what the American Trucking Association has done is they have pushed this narrative so far that lawmakers listen to them and they allow these drivers to come in on temporary visas. And then apparently the states that were road testing these drivers for their license, they were supposed to make sure that all of these truck drivers had papers to be able to work, some sort of green card or some sort of permit that would allow them to work in the United States. And in a lot of cases, these people were given CDLs and they were on visitors visas.
It completely just swept under the rug. None of the quote unquote good intentions that things were kind of put out there for. The checks and balances were nowhere to be found. There were no checks and balances to be had, and people have taken advantage. And I think that a lot of that now that you're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of people, the motoring public has been put at risk. And I'm not putting this directly on all of the non-domicile CDL drivers. I'm pretty sure there's some pretty good drivers out there.
Lots of them.
But they're with all of the stuff that's in the news and that's been happening, and it's been getting the attention that it's been getting over the past 2 to 3 months now. It is definitely gotten on the radar of America, I believe, as far as with the motoring public, because when you have these horrendous type of accidents that unfortunately that they have been taken apart, that they have been say that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so to speak. It's not trying to paint all the people in that community with that broad brush, but we got some people that are regular American drivers. It's a lot of people. There was an accident in South Georgia. I don't know if you heard about this one,
No.
Chuck. There was an accident in South Georgia. It was an American killed the family of 8.
Oh, God.
Didn't have, from what I understand, didn't have insurance. Exactly.
You drive a tractor trailer without insurance. Tell me.
Didn't have. Well, there seems to be one of the cost-cutting measures that some fleets have been doing is they may have newer trucks, but they don't make the entire fleet may not be insured.
Hold on a second. You can run a truck. I have collision insurance. You go buy a brand new 2025 or 2026 truck, and it's your personal decision. You're not going to take collision insurance because you paid for that truck with hard-earned cash. You decide, I don't want collision, but you still have to have liability insurance, public liability.
From what I understand, I can't speak to it with any authority. Yeah. But from what I understand, there are some carriers that, as a cost-cutting measure, they have some that they may have bought, may not be a new truck, but maybe a new to them truck. How about that?
I don't care. It's with 1954.
I understand.
Like, we have a law in Canada. If you get caught running a motorbike in Ontario without insurance, I think it's a $10,000 fine.
Well, I'm just, from what I understand, I don't have the story directly in front of me, and I apologize for that. But from what I understand, he didn't have insurance, and was also the registration was suspended.
Whoa!
So,
well, you know what? You're almost at the point at that case. It's just like robbing a bank. You know, like the people do rob banks every day, and they break into houses and they do all sorts of horrible things. It's along those lines. Just going out there, you've broken every law in the book, and you're in a, this is it goes far beyond what we did in the old days, the bravado of running way beyond our capabilities, way beyond our hours and everything else. We were bad boys, but we didn't do stuff like this.
And that's another thing. One of the other things that's kind of coming out as far as, and we talked about it a little bit about, it's hard to compete with people and companies that are able to run that are just skirting the law. They're not abiding by the ELD regulations, and you got people that are running, and a lot of people in the industry knew that this was going on, but they didn't give a damn, and nobody really sounded the alarm about it. That you had guys taking runs of 900 plus miles, and the loads paying $1.25. But they would take it because it was I guess they figured they could make $1 because they could still get it there next day or something like that. But you had people running obscene amount of hours and running over the law. Hours of service be damned. They were just doing what they do.
Yeah, you know what? It's really hard when you have an industry like ours, and we're not all on the same playing field. It's got to be a level playing field. You're allowed to run number of hours, and that's all you should be running, because anything beyond that, you're a sitting duck for anything to happen. Even if it's not your fault, becomes your fault.
Correct. I would like to, salute to Craig Fuller on that deal.
Yes.
By him coming out and saying what he said and really putting it out there, let's put an end to this whole driver shortage myth nonsense, because we all know that there's no way in the hell that there's a driver shortage if rates have been depressed for well over going on pushing into 4 years now.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to take my hat off to Craig, but I also want to take my hat off to Schneider National, because Schneider National all along did not buy into this narrative. They've been saying all along there is no driver shortage. We don't have a problem getting drivers. They've been growing their fleet.
Right.
Okay. Why doesn't Schneider have a problem getting drivers? Because they pay their drivers enough. People are willing to work there to give them decent conditions. We've never had a driver shortage, Rico. We've had a money problem.
It's a money problem. It's a money problem.
People what they deserve, so they didn't do it. And the churn rate in our industry, I don't know how these people can go to sleep at night knowing that they've got a 90 or 100% turnover of drivers. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like you say, it's definitely a money problem. And what's the old saying? They say never underestimate the next man's greed.
Yes, it doesn't make any sense, because what these guys don't realize is the cost of that turnover is so expensive, because you've got to have this HR department, you've got to have your part of your recruiters and everything else, and you bring in these people, and even if you have a trained driver, and you bring them in, it still costs money to recruit them, even if you don't have to train them. Okay, it's still, because you got to teach them your way, how you do things, and it still costs money to bring that person in the door. And you're better off to not have to bring them in the door and keep the people you have by paying them a few dollars more.
Yeah, and another point that Craig made up, that he brought out, and he was saying that, and like I say, kudos to him for saying it. You got a lot of good companies that could not compete in this environment because of all of the stuff with this narrative of this driver shortage, and with the amount of people that flooded the industry and were running. I don't know any other better term than renegade, just out here running renegade in the industry, and they were trying to do things the right way, such as your Carol Fulmers, your Davises, your nice companies that have been around for a long period of time and ran good operations, but in this type of environment could no longer compete with what's going on out here right now.
Yeah, well, you can't. You know what? And he used a great example. I listened to that interview, and he used Carol Fulmer. There's a great example.
Yeah.
What are they? 500-600 trucks.
Right.
Been in business for about 70 years, like an A-class carrier. Just did it all. I know who they are. I've always seen them on the road. Just a great carrier, and they can't compete with the idiots that room.
No.
Which is really unfair. It's like those stories you hear.
Uh-oh. I don't know if Chuck is still with us. He froze up there for a second, but let's see if we can get him back in. There he is. There he is.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, we both glitching out tonight.
I'm in Canada. I have an excuse. What's yours? The thing I heard today is we're getting a lot of traction in this direction from the government of the United States, because now we have say what you want about the current administration. They're doing some really shitty stuff. Okay, I will say that, but they're also doing some great stuff. And this is one of the things I think they're doing really well. I think they're very friendly towards the trucking industry.
Yeah, I think that they are getting some of the stuff that they are doing. They are getting it right. The only thing that I will say and that's not necessarily on them per se. One thing that I don't like is that a lot of the stuff when we talk about the non-domicile drivers, I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media that is it's really exposing the underbelly of how people. Unfortunately, we still have people that have a uh, superiority complex or superior mindset as far as they think that they're better than everybody else, and there's a really despicable racist tone to some of the stuff that I have seen out there on some social media. I'm seeing, some people are making up these AI videos and things of that nature, and I don't have words. I really don't have words for that. It's really just a totally despicable, some of the stuff that I've seen on social media. But at the same time, I understand that unfortunately that you got to kind of take the good with the bad in that instance.
Well, yeah, and I've been saying it for years. We may have run out of farm boys from Iowa because they were always our best drivers, historically. And farming has changed, so you're not getting
Right.
the number of people from the farms anymore. That just doesn't happen because farming all over has become globalized. It's farms are bigger.
Yeah, big agribusiness now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can't have 100-acre farm because you won't make any money. You can't feed your family. You've got to have, these are, I know out in Western Canada, 5,000 acres is not enough land to afford the equipment that you need. So they're selling out to these large multinationals who, they're conglomerates. It's big agribusiness. So that has stopped us from being able to get the farm boys, but that doesn't mean there's not people available. And it's fine. We can import some people if they come from somewhere else, but for God's sakes, they've got to be legal and they got to be trained and they got to be able to speak English.
Yeah, and there was another video floating around, and I don't know how much with all of the technology out here nowadays, you don't know exactly what to believe, what's credible and what's not. Unfortunately, there was a video that is kind of floating around with the truck driver supposedly speaking with a Los Angeles highway patrol.
Right.
And I didn't watch the video long enough, but I never saw the officer. I just seen it was just a video of a gentleman sitting inside of the cab, and the person that he was allegedly speaking with was a highway patrol officer. So we never saw the other person, or we never know who really it was, at least that I saw. But they were basically kind of saying that they don't, which was crazy. They don't do, if they pull someone over and they can't speak, and they were going to do a level 1 inspection, and if in California, if they couldn't speak English proficiently, they would just bump it down to a level 2 inspection.
Right. I saw that. It didn't make any sense. And the other thing, in fairness, I understand you. There has been the English proficiency law for years. We had a driver busted for it, a Polish guy, Joe, which was about over 20 years ago. His English was horrible. And I used to say to him, Joe, you're in the damn truck all the time. Learn English. You've got, in those days, I think we had a cassette tape, maybe even 8 tracks. You could buy the Berlitz language tapes and you can learn English. And he eventually got out of it because his English was so bad. And he was doing LTL, which is really, but these guys, I will give them credit, Rico. These guys go from here to the West Coast and back, and some of them don't speak a word of English. I knew years ago there were a group of Laotian drivers. There was a whole group of them out of the Toronto area that used to run California. These guys were they were road warriors. And between all of them, I don't think they spoke 5 words of English, but they could drive. But, we've had a lot of problems but there is certainly I would agree with you. We have a racial overtone with all of this, especially against our Southeast Asian community or communities. They're getting the brunt of it because they're our new farm boys. And a lot of them come here illegally, and a lot of, or don't have a right to work in the United States. They may in Canada, but they don't in the United States.
Yeah, I definitely, I get the whole American drivers first movement push. I get it, and I'm not, hey, to a degree, I definitely agree with it. Now, but
Yes.
like I said, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be um, racist out here with the rhetoric that is out there. Like I said, the video, the harmful and the hurtful videos and stuff like that. Come on, man, that's grade school stuff. And I would think and hope that we are better than that. But obviously, we still got people that still operate as if they were still in middle school or whatever.
Rico, it's a very, very slippery slope, and we're starting to see this nationalistic stuff go on.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just America; it's catching fire in Europe again. I want to remind, ladies and gentlemen, read your history about World War II. This is how it all started, very innocently, okay? But this is like starting a forest fire, and you don't know, you add some fuel to that flame, and you don't know how big it's going to get. This could get very ugly very quickly, and that's my concern. We're starting to see it in Europe with some hardline right-wing women, especially. They're the new politicians. And I don't know which way this world's going to go, but it doesn't look positive, unfortunately. I don't want to sound negative, but that part doesn't look very good.
But yeah, it's definitely some interesting times coming about. I think that hopefully we're starting to see in certain lanes, we're starting to see a little bit more stability. I'll use that word. Notice that in places like Florida, where once upon a time where it's difficult to get in, get into, but hard to get out of. I'm starting to see I'm starting to notice that even places like Florida, even during off peak times, might not be such a bad place to get into if you get in the right pocket, so to speak.
Yeah, you know what? There is some freight now coming out of Florida, and there's probably, I'm sure if you talk to an economist that knew, there's probably some reasons. I think Florida's probably done a better job than they have in the past of getting some more distribution there, perhaps doing a little bit more manufacturing, low tax rates, things like that. And then you have a lot of foreign-born drivers who don't want to go near Florida because they're worried about ICE.
Right. And so we're going to start to, we're going to continue to monitor the situation and see how things are going. I know that there are a lot of people that there was a immigration attorney that was telling all of his clients, not to even get on the road.
That's a great. I got to tell you, he's a great lawyer to tell them that, because he just saved a whole bunch of clients a lot of money. What do you do when you have a driver that has been taken out of his truck and you've got a load parked at the side of a scale somewhere or at a port of entry, and you've got a truck and load? You've got to fly somebody. You've got to fly a licensed driver, not just anyone. You got to fly a licensed driver down there to pick up that load and deliver it.
Yep, and unfortunately, from what I understand, there really is no due process for this whole situation. So I'm not sure how that whole scenario is going to even play out.
Yeah, that's the scariest part of the whole thing is and that's what worries me. It's the lack of due process, because our countries are built on that. Innocent until proven guilty. It's old British law.
Yep. So with that being said, Chuck, we're pushing up against we right up against it. I don't know if you want to go a little longer, or do we want to leave it right there for this week?
Yeah, you know what? I think let's leave it short and sweet. I think we're shortening these things. I think our listeners are appreciating not having to hang on there for an hour, and we can do it a lot quicker, and they can walk away with something to think about. And excuse me, I think we're going to continue on this. I think that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all tell us what you think. Do you guys agree with, the statement that Craig Fuller put out there? Do you agree that there? And I believe that we already know the answer, but you never know until you know. But if you guys would leave us a comment, let us know whether or not you think there's an actual driver shortage, or was it just a propaganda plea from the ATA?
Yeah, you know what? And the reason, I want to leave our listeners with this. The reason this whole narrative was spun so they could go out to unconventional sources to source drivers and to bring them in, to turn and burn them through a quick training school of some sort. Some of the companies have their own, and other, put them through some training school within 2 weeks, and they've got a truck driver within 2 to 4 weeks.
Yep.
At a fraction of the cost.
Unfortunately, and now and some of that stuff, like I said, with the safety aspect of it, a lot of this stuff, is starting to come back to bite us in the backside.
Yeah, well, there's so much of it.
The cost cutting measures, the cutting corners, all that stuff is starting to come back to bite us in the backside.
100%. You've got those cost cutting measures with labor, and then add that on to some of the fleets that have done something really stupid. Not all of them, but there are some fleets out there that have chosen not to participate in keeping their fleets maintained. There is that. So some of the maintenance has gone by the wayside, which you cannot do running trucks.
Yeah. And so with that being said, Chuck, you want to let the folks know how they can find you and get into contact with you if they have questions or need
Yes,
a little assistance?
By all means, if I can help any of our listeners, please send me an email, chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on it, and I always get back to our listeners right away. If I can help you with anything, please just give me a call. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back her in the hole for another week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, we appreciate your time and attention. As we always say, you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you took a little bit of time to hang out with us, and we're always grateful for you doing so. If you guys would, please tell a friend to tell a friend about the Racing Lanes podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. And until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, we want you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. God bless you and good night.